And welcome inside another edition of the Breakfast Burrito right here on YSN. And hey, guess what? You're just hearing our voice because our ugly mugs are not up for sale today. Some technical difficulties yesterday, but we overcome, and we did the same thing this morning. Mr. Pease, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you? And my mother always told me I had a face for radio, so I think this actually works out better for me.
You know what? It works out better for both of us because I think that the people are going to get what they wanted, and they can listen to us in the car. They can listen to us at the gym. They don't have to see our ugly mugs. Well, you're a handsome, young, dapper fella, and they don't have to see my they don't have to see my bald head and my dogs running up and down the stairs. So I think this works out better for us, just being audio and going with it. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. But hey, man, lots to catch up on, obviously. Some, not having a show yesterday due to those technical difficulties, but being able to overcome. We both had a little bit of hoops action last night. How'd the Potters fare?
The Potters struggled last night. Wellsville came into the Fieldhouse for an OVAC tournament consolation game, and they handled business the same way they did the first time they came in, 85-60. Potters lose by 15. Once again, a team comes into the Fieldhouse and just absolutely shoots the lights out on the court there. Wellsville was super hot all night. Liverpool had nothing for them to bounce back from that hot shooting, and Wellsville dominant all night, 85-60. Extended the lead to 23 at one point. So it was all Wellsville Tigers, and athleticism came to the forefront, as we talked about yesterday or the day before yesterday. Athleticism came to the forefront, and the much more athletic, fast-paced Wellsville Tigers team took the victory. So hats off to Bug Thompson and the Wellsville Tigers, who put together a great game plan last night and took down the Potters.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to the voice of Wellsville, Mr. Michael Reiner, earlier this season, and he said the Tigers are really set up for a nice run here in the tournament. So it'll be interesting to see really where the chips fall for the Tigers, as they are, for all intents and purposes, earning their stripes this season under Bug and under the leadership over there in Wellsville. So tough to see the Potters continue to kind of tread water and put their head under a little bit, but I'm confident, just as you are, that they'll find their way out of it, especially when you look at who they got to play here coming up in the tournament.
Yeah, we head to Weirton on Friday night to take on the Red Riders. That's our last regular season game, and then we have a 10-day layoff heading into the sectional game against our crosstown rival Beaver Local Beavers. So it'll be exciting to see how the Potters respond after a 10-day layoff. Have a lot of time to get back to the drawing board and kind of see what's going to work for them. One of the things that I think are limiting the Potters is they're so deep and they're so young that it's hard for them to find five guys that they can put on the floor that that are gelling right now to maximize possessions, maximize point potential. So over the next 10 days, 14 days now to the Beaver Local game, we should be able to put some good practices together and maybe start to gel at the right time, I should say, before we head into the state tournament.
So let me ask you this, and we may have talked about this already in previous shows, but I want to just kind of recap it. Do you agree with the time off factor? I know it's we've talked to a couple coaches. They're not crazy about it. They're not in love with it. But it also, at this point of the season, allows you to heal up a little bit. But it kind of throws you off your game. What's your take on the break there between regular season and tournament play in the state of Ohio?
I think it could be good or bad depending on which direction that your team's heading in. If you're hot right now, if everything's going your way, if you're in a groove as a basketball team at this time, having a 10, 11, 12, sometimes 14-day layoff, can take you out of that groove, take you out of the game groove, basically. Game. If you're playing 3 nights a week and your legs are good and you're healthy and you've hit in your stride, it could negatively affect you. But on the other side of the coin, if you got a team that's struggling, offensively or defensively, and it takes work to improve on both sides of the ball, you have, you got an extended amount of time to get on the practice court and figure out what works best for you heading into the state tournament. So, I mean, it can go either way. I'm sure that there's a bunch of coaches out there that aren't happy about it just because they got their team where they need to be right now. And then you got coaches out there that are probably pretty happy that they got, 10 to 14 days to prepare for their state tournament foe.
Have you had a chance to talk to Coach Conley about where he's at on it and, how his feelings are? I would assume, and again, we all know what it means when you assume, that this could probably help the Potters as they move forward, especially kind of get their head right for a nice tournament run.
Yeah, the Potters have had, they've been, I wouldn't say plagued because it hadn't been that bad, but they fought through the flu bug. Now they had some injuries that popped up on them, and and then also too they had multiple layoffs. They had a huge layoff after the Holiday Classic with all the snow, and then there was another 10 to 13 day layoff in January. So when it comes to hitting stride, I feel like that's one thing that the Potters haven't been able to do due to those things, weather, injuries, sicknesses, and hopefully they can put together a good string of practices over the next 10 to 14 days and they get a little run at Weirton on Friday, who's a really good basketball team, and then it's off to prepare for Beaver Local, which I'm pretty sure these young kids are going to be focused up because it is the playoffs and it's Beaver Local. So practices should be good, and I'm sure Coach Conley, Coach Miller, those guys will bring the best Potter team they possibly can on the 27th of February against the Beaver Local Beavers.
It's going to be exciting stuff, my friends. Lots of local action again last night as teams around the area look to wrap up the season. The LeBray Vikings, big winners over Niles, 69-39. Hubbard, and I don't know if this is accurate, gets blanked by Brookfield, 56-0. We're gonna have to check with our partners over at ScoreStream and make sure that is accurate. But interesting
Brookfield
nonetheless.
Must got some serious defense, if so.
Yeah, that's incredible. So we'll double check on that one. But I figured that was worth reporting a little bit. The Fighting Irish of Ursuline, 63-58 over the Austintown Fitch Falcons. That's a big win and a signature win for Ursuline right there. The South Range Raiders, I was able to call that one last night, 50-41 over Cardinal Mooney. And my friend, without getting too deep into it, the Raiders came out flat the first half, and second half came out firing. Just absolute dominance from the Raiders in the second half, outscoring the Cardinals 34-18 in the second half. Brady White, player of the game, 12 points. I think he tallied something in every single category, filling the stat sheet on senior night. So hats off to the Raiders. Hats off to Coach Cullen for getting them inspired at halftime and being able to come back and beat the Mooney Cardinals, which is turning into a real rivalry in that Youngstown area. 63-49, the Poland Bulldogs over Campbell Memorial. Girard falls to Howland, 60-33. The Crestview Rebels just couldn't hang on. They had a 25-20 lead yesterday during the game, but Springfield outlasts them 80-57. The Springfield Tigers get a win over Coach Wilson and his crew. The Louisville Rockets prevail over the East Palestine Bulldogs, 59-52. The Liberty Leopards fall to Struthers, 92-68. The Wildcats still running wild up in Bob Seen's hometown. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this kind of accumulates towards the playoffs, because with that 10-day layoff for most team, or more in some cases, it's going to take some of the juju, as you said, kind of out of the the wind out of the sails of some of these teams. So I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it. I think that these teams, a lot of them are hitting their stride right now. They're shooting very, very well, and a 10-day layoff might help some teams that are struggling, but it's absolutely going to put a wet blanket on the teams that are red hot right now. And I think there's a lot of coaches that are concerned about that, and it'll be interesting to see if the OHSAA can fix this issue, or if this is something that's going to happen year after year.
They're just delaying baseball, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's frustrating too, because you look at teams that make a good run And a lot of them are, as we talked about last week, are multi-sport athletes. And, they've got to get ready for the next season. And some of them are going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks behind because, essentially scheduling issues. And it doesn't really, I don't point the finger at the athletic director. I point the finger at the OHSAA and I say, okay, guys, even though this, you've got to be ready, you've got to have your ducks in a row. And I'm sure there's other things into effect into their scheduling, as, the Canton Fieldhouse, for instance, making sure that, teams can play at other, at their home field or home court in this case. So it's going to be, it's tough, man. It's a tough, it's like walking on eggshells, I guess, because you don't want to rock the boat too much, but you also want to make sure that, all athletes and coaches of all sports are accommodated. And I think, to your point, you probably feel it the most, this hurts a program when you can't get those teams to gel quickly.
Right. Oh, you're absolutely right. It's going to hinder a lot of good basketball teams. Like you said, it's like throwing a wet blanket on them. So hopefully that the teams that are hot right now, it's all about, the coach keeping everybody on their toes, fresh, ready to go. A lot of shooting, a lot of running through their offensive sets, stay conditioned. It's a long layoff in any sport. So hopefully that these teams that are looking to make a run deep into the playoffs, who are hitting their stride at the right time, can overcome, the long layoff. And when they do come back out, it's like they haven't skipped a beat. But we both know that there's going to be teams out there that are hot right now, and after a 10 to 14 day layoff, it's gonna affect them in a negative way. And it's just all about battling through it, and at the end of the day, playing better basketball than the other team across court. So
yeah, it's going to be, it's like you said. I mean, it's tough, but the coach is going to have to fight through both on the basketball court and on the old diamond. I mean, you guys are in I'm assuming you're inside right now, right? You guys are in the gym or somewhere, some facility.
Yeah, still officially open gym. So yeah, we're just in there throwing, conditioning, like getting hand-eye coordination back in check, and running through as much repetition as we possibly can. So on the 19th of February, pitchers and catchers will report, and we'll still be in the gym, of course, until the weather breaks and the field's ready. And I always said they should push baseball back a little bit for high school. You have so many cancellations or delays or whatever in the springtime here in northeastern Ohio. It just makes it tough. It makes it tough once again for high school baseball teams sometimes to get in the groove when you have all those cancellations in the early part of the season. So, but they actually went. The OHSAA voted on pushing the season back for high school baseball this year, and it was turned down. So they kept everything how it had been in the past, and they said that they'll try again next year to hopefully push the season back later into maybe the first part of June. But then it starts to get complicated as seniors don't go to school, graduation's around the corner, so you start to lose a lot of focus there of your players as well. So it's a difficult sport. It's such a short season, and it's such an erratic time for weather that it makes it hard to makes it hard to get in a groove for a lot of baseball teams here in northeastern Ohio or all over Ohio.
We're going to take an audible. I know I sent you the pre-show kind of rundown, but your transition into pushing the season back. Let's flip one of them. Let's talk about AAU ball for basketball and summer ball for baseball. Not only where you get more exposure, but if you're talking about moving the season back into June, that starts to affect people's summer ball and summer teams for baseball. So do you think that that's going to, and obviously the OHSAA probably has zero cares for what's going to happen during the summer because it doesn't involve them. But for some of these players, some of these, parents, families, summer ball is where they get the most exposure because now you have NCAA coaches, coaches from the next level and levels beyond coming down, and because they have a little bit of time to watch you play. They're not during their seasons a lot of times. So do you think that would affect summer ball and the exposure of some of these athletes that want to play baseball at the next level?
Yeah, I mean, not only kids that are going to be graduating, but younger ages. You look at Colt and Legion ball. They're starting to pick up there right in the beginning of June. So yeah, it would definitely affect that, especially if teams, are making runs into the playoffs. In baseball. Um, it comes back to what we talked about specializing in one sport. It's almost like with how all these sports run together, and then each sport has like an off season type you know AAU or some sort of Legion baseball or AAU for basketball, whatever. It just it really complicates things, and there's only 24 hours in a day, so it makes it hard for these guys to you know to hone in on a craft that they want to excel in, whether it be baseball or basketball. So I mean, it just sometimes, even though they say multiple sports athletes are what we want, and don't specialize in anything, sometimes scheduling and the way things are done here in our area, it makes it hard for kids to do that, play multiple sports and do it at a high level. So yeah, I mean, AAU basketball starts, for younger kids, it starts in March. And then, once high school season's over, these kids are going right into AAU basketball. So it's a good question, but it definitely, everything affects everything when it comes to, one sport or the other, because all these sports, they cross timelines, and it makes it hard for kids who want to play multiple sports at a high level to accomplish everything that they want to accomplish by playing high school baseball, playing summer baseball, playing high school basketball, playing AAU basketball, so on and so forth. Same way with volleyball, and then you go from high school volleyball to JO volleyball, and it just goes crazy from there. So
Let me ask you this. So I guess the better question, as a father of kids who are in sports, where do you think the exposure to maybe play at the next level is better? Is it better at the high school level, or is it better at the AAU or summer ball? Or like you said, there's so many for volleyball. There's so many opportunities elsewhere to get that exposure. And I just want to get your take before I kind of chime in on my side.
Well, I mean, it's right now for basketball, especially, the most of your exposure comes right now in AAU or summer or some sort of high end summer league basketball. It's a time where a lot of these coaches are able to get out and do a little travel and recruiting, and when they do it, of course, during the high school season, but predominantly now they're going to AAU tournaments or AAU camps, and they're finding the elite talent, because usually, for the most part, at the AAU basketball level, you're seeing 5 guys on the floor or 10 guys on the floor at the same time, all with elite skill level or the potential to have elite skill level, and it just makes for an easier recruitment process for these colleges and for these universities. And for example, AAU DFS, which is Drill for Skill, it's ran by legendary Blackhawk coach John Miller. Both of his sons are college coaches, one at Arizona, the other at Indiana. So right there, any elite talent that comes through the Drill for Skill AAU program, those 2 colleges, I'm sure, get the first pick or the first dib, at least looking at them. And like I said, with it being the off season after March Madness, with it being the off season for these college coaches, it just is an easier process for them to get out and find the kids that they want.
So it boils down, I guess, what's the most important part to families? Do they see it? Do they rank these extracurricular, or I don't even know, the outlier, outsourced sport, or I guess teams, as higher than their own school now?
I think it just depends individually. Each person is different. I mean, if I was, I guess, I bleed blue. So if I was a Potter basketball player, I would take a lot more pride than representing I take a lot more pride in representing my hometown, my school, my friends, you know what I mean? Than I would, just going out and playing AAU, which, of course it's a team game at the same time, but when you play AAU basketball, you're there to better your own skill set. And I feel like, the pride of representing your own school, like I said, or your own town, is thrown out the window, and you're representing, an organization that's giving you the opportunity to showcase your skill set. So some kids might look at one thing better than the other, and I guess to each is their own. But for me personally, if I would have more pride in playing for my hometown or my school district than I would, for an AAU organization that's, basically set in place to give these kids the opportunity to showcase their skills.
I know from my side, where when I was in Little League and played, my friends played flag football, and I couldn't wait to don the school colors. I couldn't wait to put on that jersey for the first time and represent my hometown. And I think that feeling was kind of across the board for a lot of my friends, a lot of my teammates, whether it's baseball or football or basketball. We just couldn't wait to, in my case, throw on the brown and white. And I think that feeling's not necessarily true so much anymore. You see it in different schools here and there that they have tons of school pride. We have some of them in our coverage area for YSN. But I think for some schools, for some parents, for some coaches, for some players even, the excitement comes to, who's going to recruit me, who wants me the most, and I think they feel like there is, they can step into and play for their hometown because, hey, it's my hometown. I'm going to play here regardless. I'm the best in the area. But when you look at AAU, when you look at, summer ball, like we used to call it Big B, Little B in Scene Park in Youngstown, it's who recruits me the most, who makes me feel the most special. And that's where my dedication will come from. So I think that things are a little bit backwards. I think it's a generational issue. I think these coaches for these teams, for whether it's JO, whether it's, baseball outside and playing Little League or just summer league ball, I guess, whether it's AAU, I think there's a recruitment piece to it that they can utilize and make the kids feel like they're wanted and needed a lot more than if you're a regular coach. But that too is changing with open enrollment. Different options as we're seeing around here locally. Kids are going where they feel like they're wanted the most, or similar to a college situation where they feel like they've been kind of wooed off their feet a little bit. And I think that's a bad thing. I think that's going to get a lot of kids in trouble because, as they realize, and I had a chance to sit with Anello Bazzacco at South Range yesterday for his signing day. And one of the things he told me was, I'm not real crazy about the whole, process of recruiting and things of that nature, because he didn't say it, but I know that coaches will tell you and recruiters will tell you anything you want to hear, because their job is what, Tommy? To get you there. That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's their number one job, because if they get you there, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. Then it's in the coach's hands. Then it's in the hands of the university or college. So
recruiters are salesmen, really. I mean, ultimately.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah. And their number one job is to get you to say yes. And that's, and as much as I appreciate the sales game, the hustle, and the recruiting job, kids have to be very careful. Parents, families have to be very careful about what's promised to them at either the next level or what team they're going to be on, because it doesn't always pan out the way they're told. There's a lot of, snake oil salesmen out there that are going to tell you, hey, you're going to be the number one pitcher. You're going to be the number one catcher. You're going to be our starting shortstop from day one. And then you get there and there's 7 shortstops. So it's an interesting time to be alive. It's an interesting time to be an athlete. But my please, parents, families, coaches, look after your kids, because this is even though it's for us, it's an honor, it's a privilege to always wear your school colors with pride. For them anymore, it's all about attention, and that's our society. It's who gives us the most attention, who retweets me 6 times, who does, it's this. So please be careful. This is our plea. Not saying that you don't want to play summer ball or don't want to do the extracurriculars, but I think there's a nervousness for me because it's turning into a recruitment game rather than a Mighty Ducks who's playing where.
You're right. You are right.
So for me, now that rant's over, I think it boils down. I think there's I think again, the school, playing for your school, there's a lot of pride. You can win a state championship with the guys you grew up with. But I do think that AAU, I do think that summer ball, I do think that JO provides you a better chance to hone your skills, to increase your talent, to find what role you're going to play at the next level. But it also gives you a better opportunity. To me, it gives you a better opportunity to play at the next level and showcase your skills in front of people who can help you get there. So not that you can't during high school basketball season, but I think they've flipped the pancake, so to speak. And high school is more about, breaking school records and things of that nature and making sure that you have good grades and so you can literally play at the next level, I guess. But I think the summer ball and the extracurriculars actually solidify that.
Exposure. It's all about exposure, and that's what those, like you said, JO, summer ball, AAU, it's all about exposure. And right now, that's where the exposure is coming from, are those organizations.
Well, and talking to a player yesterday, he mentioned that he plays in Youngstown. He's a very talented baseball player, and he mentioned, I've played in this state, and this state, and this state, and this state, and we played this team and this team. And he's naming countries, not like towns. Like we used to play, we were Wayne's Machine or Venetia's Auto Sales, and we were playing like, the Valley Mart, Vittle Village. He's saying, yeah, we played Korea, we played, and I'm sitting there like eyes wide open. Wow, like you're playing top tier competition. You're playing Virginia. You're playing, South Carolina. You're going on trips to the Carolinas, to the coast, down to Florida. South Range, get this, South Range, and a lot of schools do this, but South Range is going down to Myrtle Beach. We're going to follow them down there for coverage for baseball and softball. The first time I left to play baseball anywhere was in Columbus. Wow. After that, it was in college. We went down to Florida. So these high school teams are doing things that college teams are doing on spring break. So it's a cool time to be in high school because you're getting all the benefits of being able to go outside your comfort zone and outside your district.
That'll be a fun trip.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We're ironing out the details, but Myrtle Beach is going to be neat, man, to play and to be out in the sunshine, and hopefully the weather cooperates. But yeah, I never heard of it, and we were approached and said, "Hey, would you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah. Who doesn't want to go to Myrtle Beach in the first week of April?"
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be cool, but it's just another example of how schools have to compete with these extracurricular, activities and get out of, Canfield or North Lima or wherever you want to consider it. But it's an advantage to the kids too, because they get that, here in Ohio, we're playing indoors until probably the third week of April because of the weather. And then, if you play teams from, down south, or you play teams from anywhere that has good weather, they're playing outside 365 days a year. And they're
already outside.
Oh, they're playing games. So if you look down in Florida, they're reporting baseball games already, baseball scores, high school baseball scores. So, we still got a month and a half before, we can even think about it. But it's cool, man. It's an exciting time, but I just want to make sure, we've had a lot of questions and a lot of people talking about AAU, and you and I have discussed it before. And I just wanted to get your take and get the people's take essentially on AAU versus and summer ball versus kind of school ball, and see where people's loyalties lie. So that would be our social media question for the day. It's going to be: are you behind school ball, or do you kind of put AAU and the extracurricular a little bit higher? So we got to find a better word than extracurriculars too, because that kind of blows.
Yes, I mean, I don't know. AAU, JO, and then summer baseball.
Yeah.
But I would call it like enhancement programs.
Yeah.
Would be that's what they are. They're skill enhancement programs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you want to play sports at the next level, you can't just play high school sports. You have to continue to hone your craft and play at a higher level, and you do that with those programs we just talked about.
There are outliers, right? I mean, there's some kids that just play high school sports and they can play at the next level, but those are few and far between, correct?
Well, yeah, they're superior athletes who have natural ability beyond the norm, and those gifted kids can do that. But for a lot of kids, the exposure's got to come at those enhancement programs.
So let's talk about this. This was it's a hot topic all across the nation right now, and obviously with you being a father and someone who understands kind of where this is going. I've got friends that are coaches, parent coaches. I've got family that's parent coaches. That I want to be eventually someday a parent coach, but there comes a time where your kids aren't going to have you as a coach, and what we're seeing here is it turns into a parents versus the coaches situation. Now, some coaches are highly skilled at being able to, back the parents off a little bit and include the parents in certain aspects of the program. But when you reach when you reach the middle school level, the parents need to take a back seat and let the coaches do their job because they're getting paid to do just that. So what's your take on we'll talk a little bit about, parent coaches, and then let's get into parents versus coaches just a little bit.
So we're going to start with parent coaches.
Yeah, parent coaches. Like your feeling on parent coaches. My big thing, and I'll kick it off, and you can kind of chime in if you don't mind.
Okay.
We've reached a point where every parent seemingly thinks that they can watch YouTube for an hour and become an expert in that particular subject, whether it be baseball, softball, basketball, you name it. All you need is a YouTube video and some insight, which is great. And I applaud their volunteerism. But reality is this. Reality is, if you haven't been around the game, if you've never been in the game, and you're trying to tell your kid to do it, you should, or we should, kind of mind our P's and Q's and understand that, unless you're willing to do what you're telling your kid to do, or have done what you're telling your kid to do, maybe we should take a back seat on this or consult an expert. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's, one of the biggest problems is the fact that, all these youth organizations, and I'm involved in one here in East Liverpool, the River Valley Youth Baseball League. At the lower levels, unfortunately, parents have to coach, and it's already hard enough to find parents in today's world that have the time to coach, let alone the number of parents we need to coach. So it's we try to put on like coaching camps and stuff to help these guys, better coach these young teams, starting at T-ball all the way up to 11 and 12-year-old kids. But for me, coaching kids, you could hone their skill set by getting on YouTube, doing drills, and doing all the little things that might make them a better player. But the key thing that you have to do when coaching youth is just getting them, one, to buy into the game and understand the game that they're playing, and two, get them to want to play for you as a coach. You know what I mean? You have to get these kids behind you, and it's so hard today because attention spans and focus from today's youth is very hard to get. They have so much going on. We talked about this before. Like me and you, in our spare time, we'd be outside throwing up sticks or hitting balls into the woods or playing in the creek. In today's world, I mean, you don't have that. These kids, my goodness, they know more at 11 years old than some adults do in today's world. It's crazy. But parent coaches, they're never going to go away. There's always going to be a need for them, just because lack of numbers of parents who can actually have the time to coach. But I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'm a parent coach, but I also coach high school baseball, so it's might be a little different for me.
Yeah, I think there's a different comfort level that parents would probably have with you and the kids would probably have with you because of your expertise in the game, so to speak.
But don't think that takes away all parent issues. It doesn't.
No, and that's kind of what I want to get at is, when you're talking about little kids, and I'm talking like 3-4 years old up to, I want to say 10. 10 years old is my cutoff for, kind of everybody plays and things like that. When you're in Little League, I think everybody should get an at-bat. Everybody should get some time on the floor, 11, 12-year-olds. But then once you get into like high school ball or middle school ball, where it does count and you're still trying to teach the game a little bit, you're still trying to educate, but it boils down to wins and losses when there's people getting paid and their jobs are on the line depending on how many wins and losses they have, because that's what it boils down to for the majority of people, right? The frustrating part's got to be for parents is, when do I let the reins off? Understanding that your kid isn't going to be an NFL player, and understanding that from the coach's standpoint that they've got to do what they've got to do to put themselves in the best situation for whatever organization they're representing, if they were hired to do that job. High school coaches obviously have a tougher job than middle school, because middle school you're still teaching the game, but you still want to win. But like Little League coaches, yeah, you should definitely make sure that everybody gets in at bat, everybody gets in the game, gets a shot. And the cool thing that we saw with EPYSA, East Palestine Youth Sports Association, was almost everybody, every game, for the most part, had a chance to shoot the ball, get a basket, especially the real young kids. They would literally pick them up and let them dunk, into the basket to make sure they got a point. So they felt like it was an accomplishment, and they wanted to come back and they wanted to better themselves. But some coaches take it to the extreme, and some coaches are the other way. And what happens is, and as well as I do, when you have that clashing of one coach's ideals and another coach's ideals, you get parent participation more than anything, because little Johnny wants to win, and he's been practicing his whole life, and he wants to be a winner, and he wants the trophy. And then you have the same grade, but this different talent level, and he just wants to go out there and have fun with his buddies, or he's going out there because his dad used to play basketball, and he wants to do it too. So it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting conversation. There's no right answer to it whatsoever. But from the standpoint of kind of shifting to, it's just about fun, to now it's about winning, and it's about, success. And that's where you start to get the parents versus coaches, Tommy. And I think it boils down to then, where does that transition start for you? Because at our level, it's typically the high school, but we're seeing it kind of trickle down from level to level. And I've seen it as low as probably 7 and 8 year old, sports, where they're all about winning. And it's tough to do that, because sometimes you got to learn how to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, I've been a villain many times in my coaching career, and most of the time it was at the lower levels. Of course, I like the coach to better better these young men, whether they be 7 or 8 or 17 or 18. It doesn't matter. I want them to be better humans. But at the same time, we play games to win, and that's my mentality. It's okay to lose because, like I said before, you got to be a good loser before you could be a good winner. But when I coached 7 and 8-year-old coach pitch, we went out and we played to win, and it's not important. It has no direct impact on these kids' futures, but it's important because life's about winning and losing, and especially for me in the game of baseball, you're going to lose more than you win, especially on the individual side. If you, as a Major League Baseball player, if you fail 70% of the time every time you go to the plate, you're a Hall of Famer. So you succeeded 30%. So you batted 300. So you're a Hall of Fame caliber player. So that's why I try to teach these kids, like, baseball is a game of failures. And it's okay to fail, but it's about bouncing back and, making the best effort the next time you get a ground ball, or the next time you're at the plate, or the next time you're on the mound. But from when my son was 7 and 8 years old, we played the game of baseball to win. And when he was 8, we went, believe it or not, we went 21-0 in the regular season. And in the championship game, we actually beat the team pretty bad. And, I actually still have, I had lifelong friends that I really don't talk to anymore because of that. And it stinks, but, that's the way, as, freedom of America, that's the way I view things. And that's the way that I coach these kids. And I feel like, if you have a team that's functionable and you have the skill set, of course, you go and play the game to win. I'm on the side of the fence that, not everybody doesn't get a trophy. That's not how it works in life. That's not life. So, we play to win. Every team that I've coached, we play the game to win. But if we lose, it's okay. But we got to figure out, what didn't we do right as a team? Where did we drop the ball that made this happen? And when we get back to the drawing board at practices, we're going to work on those things, because the next time we go out and play, we're going out and we're playing to win. And I know a lot of people in this great country see it one way, and I know a lot of people in this country see it the way that I see it. But it's a battle, man. And social media just makes it, and media in general just makes it so much worse, because, like you said, this parents coaches thing, it's a hot topic, and it makes it tough. It definitely makes it tough.
So let me ask you this, I guess, if you would go 21-0, and you guys are a buzzsaw in Little League, or the
coach pitch. I know, it seems crazy.
The champions of coach pitch, and you're going for that trophy. Let me ask you this: did everybody play on your team?
Oh yeah. Here's the thing: it was a 8U is coach pitch, 8 and under is coach pitch. I had 5 8-year-olds and 5 5-year-olds on that team.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, we were stacked or whatever, but, we had 5 really good 8-year-olds who could play the game, and 5 5-year-olds. So it was I guess it was just a great coaching job,
Was nothing like patting yourself on the back. Well, let me ask you that. Like, you talk about the longtime friends that you lost over, this game.
And it happens everywhere. It ain't just me. Trust me, it happens everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can. One of my best friends, the coach and the president of EPYSA, and he gets heat all the time for, what he does and the decisions he makes. But he's trying. At the end of the day, everybody's trying to make their kid better, and it's a special, group of people out there, group of individuals and parents that try to make everybody's kids better. And my hat's off to them, because typically you're not getting paid in those positions. Those are purely volunteer positions.
Right.
And you're trying to take not only your kid and develop them and keep a focus on them, but you're also trying to make 80, 90, 150 kids better than they were when they started the season. So I'm not trying to put players or parent coaches down at all. In fact, I very much in favor of it. But I think there comes a time where parent coaches, and I guess this is what I'm trying to get at. You go to a game in high school and you say, well, I coached my kid from the time I was, he could swing a bat, or he could shoot a basketball, or, they could bump, set, and spike. I know better than you. Well, the coach has a lot to deal with. And I think from a lot of times, a lot of perspectives, there's times I'm sure that you've come home and you're like, why did I do this? Why do I put up with this? What these people have to do
every year.
And you think about it, and not necessarily you or anybody in particular, but I know people that come back and say, well, I can't wait till that coach is gone or I'm going to pull my kid until that coach is gone. Those coaches have issues too. I mean, they're doing the best they can, and many times they're not trying to play favoritism. They're trying to get the W
right.
and grow. And what you see in the games is not reflective as what you see in practice. The coaches have time and time again, and they put hours and hours. And you talk about coaches that stay in the gym until 10:30 at night and then turn it around at 7 a.m. the next day in basketball, and they're not getting paid a full-time salary to be that coach. So I think it hurts, them, and I guess I don't want to say it hurts their ego, because that's not what I'm looking for, but it hurts their willingness to want to go above and beyond whenever they're approached by parents that say, well, if you don't do this, then my kid's done because he can go elsewhere. That is a problem that we have with open enrollment, because it's not necessarily just about putting your kids in the best scenario to go to the next level for academics anymore, or where they fit in, or where the best opportunity is for them, through development and growth as a human being and as a teenager into an adult. It's more or less, where's my kid going to go and start, and where's he or she going to get the best opportunity to play basketball and headline the newspaper. That's what it boils down to a lot. And that's where I really want to see parents working more with coaches. You're seeing it in some districts, other districts, you're seeing a ton of conflict. So I would love to see more parents kind of take a back seat and realize that there's more to meets the eye than your kid not playing.
Usually it's a result. What you're talking about is a direct result of unrealistic parents. And I'm not saying that to be negative. It's just, as a parent, everybody has a thought that, maybe their kid could be the best or is the best. And, for me, I can only really talk about baseball. I mean, even at the 11 and 12-year-old level, I mean, we use Game Changer, which I'm sure you're familiar with, where it tracks just about every stat possible in baseball. In baseball is a game of numbers. Numbers don't lie. And I've dealt with parents in the past who, frustrated maybe with, their child's playing time. And, I always revert back to the numbers, because that's it, in baseball. If you have 100 at bats and you hit the ball, you got to hit 10 times out of those 100 at bats. I mean, that's a pretty large sample size. So, you can kind of use that as a stepping stone of what needs to be done. But any of the problems that I've ever had, on teams that I've coached, has just come from, parents that maybe just don't want to come to the realization that at this time their kid is probably not as good as they think he is, or as good as they want him to be. And that's okay, because I'm sure as a parent, I think my kid is better than what he is at some times. But at the end of the day, I try to stay realistic. And, if I see something that my kid's doing that I know he can do better, or he's not doing it right, I mean, I'm going to correct it. But a lot of parents, instead of doing that, taking a back seat and just saying, hey, kid, you got to work on this. You're struggling at this. Let's see what we can do on our own time to make you better. They take the easy out and they just want to go blame the coach. That's where the problem lies.
So let me ask you this. This will be one of our last points, because we only have a couple minutes left. But here's the question: is sometimes obviously the heat in the gym or the heat on the field. There's, I don't want to say there's name calling or anything like that, but you're going to get yelled at as a player because you're not going to do things right. I think there's a mindset out there is for some parents is you're not going to yell at my kid. You're not going to touch my kid. I mean, there's a different level of touching, right? So if somebody, if my coach grabs me by the face mask and I'm a catcher or a football player and he says, you do this, he's not doing it to be dramatic. He's doing it to make sure it's I'm getting my attention.
He wants to get his point across.
Yeah, right. He's getting his point across. I can't even count the number of times that's happened to me, or he's grabbed me by the jersey, or he's grabbed me by the arm, or he's told me, Yoakley, you stink today, or something like that. Where you get it all the time. You're not always going to be the best, and you're going to make decisions. That's part of growth. Is you make mistakes and you overcome it, and you try not to make the same mistake twice. What I'm having a problem with is these parents, and sometimes coaches take it too far. I'll preface by saying that. But
there's issues on both sides of the fence.
But parents, the first sign of conflict, the first sign of, oh, you're saying my kid stinks, and you're saying you grab my kid by the face mask or by the arm or by, listen, I understand it's not their kid, but they're putting in their time. They are essentially babysitting your kid for 7-8 hours sometimes during the day. If you talk about football doubles. There's a right. There is I think a right to say, hey, grab them. Like if they're not doing what you want them to do, you can stop them immediately. Now, I'm not saying you dress them up and down and throw the expletive dictionary at them, or you go and just belittle them. But what I think needs to happen is there sometimes needs to be a little bit of structure coming from outside of the player's house.
Discipline is the issue. It's discipline. There might not be this ain't every household, but there might not be discipline in home. So therefore the kid's not disciplined at whatever sport they're playing or discipline in that environment. And problems arise today when coaches want to instill discipline in their programs, and the parent at home who doesn't instill discipline then has a problem with somebody else disciplining their child. It's a crazy world we live in, man. I'm telling you, coaching today is hard, very hard.
It takes tough. It takes a special person. Yep.
So
it
really does.
Patience
is key.
Patience is very key in everything. And then I think you and I are finding out very much so. So thank you guys for tuning in. That's a wrap on, what is it? It's Valentine's Day, man. Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah. Will you be my Valentine, DJ?
Always, Mr. P.
Oh,
always. Just don't give me any flowers.
Okay.
That'll look weird. But hey, thanks for tuning in, Tommy. Great show. A couple heavy topics we used as a punching bag today. Hopefully, our audience gets a little something out of it. If you want to chime in, don't hesitate to do so. Hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter, or if you know us, just give us a call or a text. We're happy to bring you guys to light and maybe even bring you on the show. Let us know if you like the audio version better than the video version as well. Trying things out, just trying to make a better experience for y'all. For Mr. Tommy Pease, I am DJ Yoakley. It's a great day. Make it yours. So long, everybody.